first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening for my audience. I'm very happy to present this webinar to you. I see some good colleagues here from previous projects. Some people that I don't know, but I'm sure I'm going to know you sometime in the future. The purpose of this webinar today is to present some good information in terms of S/4HANA, right? We think about this idea because we know some of our colleagues, some of our customers have a lot of doubts in terms of what is S/4HANA, where should I go, which is the best version to choose. So we decided to do this webinar to put some more clarification here for you. The idea is that we don't go very technical, right? Because we don't want to confuse you, but we want to give you some good information to start this discussion with you. The idea is that we provide as many information as we can. You guys feel free to ask your questions during the webinar. We will answer as soon as possible. And at the end of our presentation, we will also have a couple of minutes so you can put your additional questions and we will be more than happy to answer, okay? So let me start with this presentation. The topic, it's called Simplifying SAP S/4HANA. Before we start something, I would like to present myself. So I'm Felipe Poroca. I work for B1 Solutions since 2018. And I have over 20 years experience with SAP, so I passed through a lot of SAP versions. For the last couple of years, I've been working with SAP, getting expertise in all these versions. My background is in sales and logistics, so this is what I've been working on these last years. And here in B1 Solutions, I have the role of a business unit manager and S/4HANA delivery manager. So I'm responsible for all Americas and mainly for this S/4HANA tower, right? Gabriel, I know that you are here with me. Why don't you present yourself so the audience can know you?
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. So my name is Gabriel Gotelli. I work in B1 Solutions. I am part of Felipe team, and I work as a project manager. I also manage all the projects in America. I don't have 20 years in experience SAP. I have 15. I'm getting close to Felipe, so I hope I can help him with this webinar today.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Gabriel. All right, guys. I think it's important to share this slide with you before we go really on the focus of this presentation. I just want to give you an overview about the SAP history. So this is, for some of you, I'm sure this is a known slide, right? But this is important so we can go ahead with the next slides. So SAP started the operations in 1979, right, with the R2 version. In 92, they moved to what is the most known version of us, which is the R3 version. Then in 2004, in my personal opinion, they just kind of changed the name from R3 to ERP, because the interface is kind of the same, right? With some slight difference, of course. But in terms of functionalities, they included some updates, some new functionalities, some enhancements. But in a great idea, I would say ERP, it's not that different than the R3, right? So, and this is what we call as ECC mainly. And then between
it's like
2000,
branding, right?
like a yes, in terms of absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, that's kind of the idea. Between 2004 and 2015, this is where they started studying to implement HANA, right? They founded initially the HANA database. So I don't want to go very technical here, but HANA is the name of the new SAP database, replacing, you know, Oracle, SQL, and others. And it's a non-SAP database. And in 2015, they effectively launched the first S/4HANA version. And they started with what we heard, which is the simple finance. And then after 2015, this is where we are right now with all these versions. And this is something that we are about to share with you in the next slides. So it's just a small visibility about the SAP history in terms of SAP versions. And I want to make sure I tell you one thing here. This is more for the medium and big companies, right? So because that's what we know in terms of ECC currently. Well, I think maybe Gabriel can agree with me that generally when we start our conversations with the customers, right, Gabriel, we come with the 3 questions. So maybe can you tell me which are the three questions, Gabriel?
Yeah, like you are seeing right now, the which, the how, and the when. So this is really important, just like Felipe said, because this will give us an idea of the scope, right? Because that's what we need to understand. Even if we try to answer what kind of version I need, when do I need it, and how much it's going to cost, we need to understand what's the scope and the type of business, because we're going to see in the next slides, based like on the type of business, like manufacturing and that, we're going to have different approaches. So that's why we always ask these 3 questions always, like which, how, and when.
Absolutely. Right. So here's one of the first questions, right? Which is the which version do you intend to go, right? So this is one of the doubts our customers have when they decide to go to S/4HANA. And these SAP S/4HANA versions generally cause some confusion. It's normal, and that's why we are here to explain you. And going at a high level overview, these are the 3 versions we have available in the market for S/4HANA, right? So we can talk about public cloud, we can talk about private cloud, and we can talk about on-premise. The next few slides will detail a bit which are the main differences between these 3 versions. But if we look to this slide, what is the idea here, right? So when we go from the middle to the left, right, we are talking more about S/4HANA as a service, right? So we have a product which is stored in the cloud. We work with subscriptions, license subscriptions, right? So you need to pay a monthly fee, either to SAP, basically to SAP. And this is why it is considered as a service. If you go to the right, where we see the on-premise version, right? This is most known as a product, right? You have to pay one-time license. But at the end, what we can see here is that the idea of SAP, regardless of these 3 versions, is to provide you one unique user experience, right? So we have one data model, we have one semantic, and we have one unique user experience. I think that's the main message here, right? Regardless of the version.
One comment, sorry, Felipe. I don't know if it's fair to say that ECC, it's like really like the on-premise version, because you have like everything for you. You own everything. So if you want like to have like an example of how, if you just want to move what you have to these 3 versions, just really high level, it's like moving from ECC to S/4HANA on-premise, because you already have everything right now, like hardware, servers, and that. You have that, so you are moving to that. But if you don't want to pay, let's say, those services anymore, like hosting and that, SAP is giving you these 2 additional options, right? The services options, the public cloud and the private cloud.
That's exactly the best explanation, right? For the users and the audience here, for the ones who know what is SAP ECC, the current version, the easiest way to compare is with on-premise. And then if we go to the left, private and public, this is what we are going to explain in the next slides. Well, this slide is a good one because SAP tells you which is the option you need to go. What is your desire? Have the private cloud, and in the right side, you have the on-premise. So let me give you a brief explanation on what we have here. And I'm going to start giving you some more details on which of these versions support you. So public cloud, it's a version which is completely managed by SAP. So it means you have one contract with SAP. All the maintenance, all the management, all the infrastructure is with SAP. So you pay to SAP, SAP does almost everything. one note here. It does not avoid the option to bring a consultancy company. Generally, you need to have your consultancy company to take care of some of your AMS, some of your new processes, and also to support your users, right? But then when we talk about cloud and infrastructure and all the license, this is all SAP, purely SAP.
Yeah, and with cloud, sorry, with cloud, what SAP tried to do is to do it user-friendly. That's how they want you to see SAP public cloud as user-friendly. That's why Felipe mentioned you may need or you may not need like a partner, because usually what SAP tries to do there is to give the power to the user now, so they can change, update, remove, delete everything, but you don't need like a specific partner for that. That's why you have like that public cloud.
Exactly, and that's the idea of public cloud. So putting in a scale, when you go to the public cloud, what I see in terms of pros and cons is you have a lot of pros because it's all managed by SAP, but then in terms of cons, comparing with the other versions, you have some limitations in terms of flexibility, right? In terms of development, in terms of integrations. And I'm not saying it's a bad version. I want to let this clear here. I'm just saying that we have like a standard package, which is delivered to you. And then I'm going to start putting some good terms here, so you're more familiar with SAP. So they come with the SAP best practice. And what is SAP best practice? It's a kind of package we have available it's a public at SAP website. And maybe we can set up a new webinar just to talk about SAP best services. But then they choose some of the main scope items from business. You know, you have scope items for sales, scope items for procurement, for finance, etc., etc. So SAP deliver you a package called best practice, and this is specific per country, where most of the things are ready to be used. So that's what they call SAP best practice. When we go to private cloud, I used to say that it's quite similar with the on-premise version, right? So if you compare in terms of development, functionalities, flexibility, I would say it's 99.9% the same as the on-premise version. And what is the big difference between the private cloud and the on-premise version? So when you go with the private cloud, again, this is a contract directly with SAP in terms of license, in terms of cloud. And then there is something here. You can choose your hyperscaler. So for the ones who don't know what is a hyperscaler, I'm talking about the biggest companies, cloud providers. So you can choose your hyperscaler like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, etc., etc. And you just tell SAP, this is the hyperscaler I know. So you pay them the licenses, you have access to a full system with all the flexibility you need, and that's private cloud. And then when you go to the on-premise, which is the last one, as I said, it's very, very similar with the private cloud. But then the difference here is that you can choose if you want to own your infrastructure. Maybe in your company, you have a specific place where you store your servers, your network. But then you have also the option to bring all this infrastructure and put this in the cloud, store this, host this in the cloud, right? So in a nutshell, and again, high level, because the next slides will give you some more details about these differences. These are the big difference between these three versions, right? Public, directly with SAP, private, also directly with SAP, but more flexibility in the private, and then the on-premise, which is very similar with the private cloud, is the option where you have your own infrastructure.
Felipe, just one comment from my side before you move to that slide. Something we need to consider, just like you explained, like which version, we need to understand the type of business, right, we are going to face, because we need to understand first, what's the scope of SAP best practices? Can SAP best practice handle my manufacturing process or not? Can they handle my quality process, my pharmaceutical process? We need to understand also, while we're taking this decision, we need to have like an assessment of our process, because that's the only way that we understand, like, can we have everything in SAP, or do we still need like satellite systems, you know? just like you explained on the on-premise, because you already have everything outside of SAP, let's call it that way. So that's something we should consider once while we're doing this research, like to understand the scope, because SAP also gives us like accelerators, I believe is the name. So we don't have to like read everything, you know, it's like a spreadsheet and they will ask you, you know, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And based on that answer, that can also help you take a decision on any of these three versions.
That's correct. This is something that generally also helps us to decide which is the best approach here to be taken. Yeah, I used to say that in general words, Gabriel, based on your comments, that when you have complexity in terms of process, it's never good to go to the public cloud, right? Because of these limitations, in my opinion, we have. So it's better to go to the private or on-premise because you have more flexibility to adapt your processes to what is offered by SAP.
Exactly. Yeah.
In general words.
That's a good point.
Okay, then as we are still in the which question, right? Because we are sharing with you which are the details regarding the versions, and we want to give you as much details as we can regarding the differences between these three versions, so you can understand what are the pros and what are the cons. And again, I'm not saying what is bad and what is good. I can agree with Gabriel that each business, each company will have specific needs, and they will be the ones deciding along with us, because we generally support this type of decision, what is the best version so they can have the best in terms of SAP, right? S/4HANA. Yeah. Well, I like this slide because this is very interesting. Gabriel, allow me to speak about this one. I'm sure you want to speak about the next one, which is also very interesting. But I like this slide because it gives us some overview in terms of licensing, delivery, and operations, right? So when we read some of the information, it is in my screen. So what is the main point here? When you go to the private or public cloud, you need to think about paying SAP as a subscription, right? Remember the first slide, we have SAP as a service, SAP as a product. So private and public, it's more as a service. So since it's a service, you need to think about paying SAP licenses, monthly fees. It's a subscription fee, right? And when you go to the on-premise, in general words, you pay one-time license, right? You buy the number of license you want, and then you just need to pay what we call the yearly maintenance, which is generally 20% against your one-time price. And I'm trying to be repetitive here so you can understand it very well. This subscription, you can buy as much licenses as you can, and then SAP will tell you how much does it cost per month. Right? So this is something interesting because when we are starting the conversation with our customers, right, we need to understand how do they prefer to go ahead in terms of budget, in terms of money, right? So some of our customers prefer to go with CapEx, right? So they want to absorb this amount of money in their budget via CapEx. So generally, they tend to go to on-premise. But if they want to absorb this via OpEx, right, it's preferable to choose this monthly and subscription licenses because it's easier for them to go with their finance. In terms of implementation, for the three versions, you need to consider a partner like us. So we are Gold partners. We are SAP Gold partners. You have always to have SAP, no doubts about that, and then the customer involvement, right? And then some additional good information here, as we can see in this slide, is what is managed by SAP and what is managed by the partner or the customer, right? Something interesting here is that AMS is also supported by SAP when you go to the public cloud. But then I want to open parentheses here so I can tell you something. And this is also based in our experience. We have customers with the public cloud, And when you read that SAP is supporting AMS, keep in mind that they do not support 100% of your operations. So keep in mind that you also need a couple of hours per month to support your business operations. They're responsible to take care of all the content lifecycle management, right? So they're absolutely responsible. And this is where it comes some of our limitations, right, Gabriel? Because we cannot touch some of the configuration, some of the points inside SAP. And I'm not saying that it's all, but some of the things we cannot touch, only SAP. And then we have more flexibility when we go to the private and on-premise, as I said. In terms of product support, SAP takes care of both public and private. The contract is directly with SAP. The same applies for technical operations and the same applies for infrastructure. And then when we go to on-premise, generally, it's a mix of SAP partner and customers taking care of the product support, technical operations, and infrastructure, right? Infrastructure, I think it's the main point here for on-premise, because as I said, customer is responsible to take care about their infrastructure, right? So different from the other ones, which is stored in SAP. SAP manage the whole contract. Next one. Gabriel, why don't you talk about this one? I know you like about this slide.
Okay. So I believe in this slide, we can go into a little bit more details about the 3 versions, but I would like to start by telling you guys that these 3 versions, and I believe I forgot about that, sorry, they also have this user interface that's called Fiori. Okay, so remember that when you choose any of these 3 versions, I mean, for the public cloud, I think it's really like common because it's in the cloud, but for the others, you also have like this Fiori, and the Fiori is just like you're using your cell phone and you have the apps. You just select one app and you open what you need. So here is the same. So SAP is giving you that opportunity. So for example, maybe you can approve purchase order, you can approve sales order, journal entries. So like the CFO or CEO does not have to go to SAP. They can just go directly to their cell phone and just approve or review KPIs. You know, that's something really important that SAP is giving us in the 3 versions, and we have seen them also. Something we should consider, at least for me, that I don't really, how do I say, I don't really like to say that, is that in the cloud, we have these quarterly upgrades. So this is something mandatory for us. In one side is good because SAP is like holding our hands and giving us the best and the most updated processes, you know. And also something we should consider, like a big difference between this version, is that, like Felipe mentioned in the previous slide, we have limitations regarding configuration. So everything SAP is giving us in the cloud is always based on best practices. So there may be some items we may not change because those are part of the best practices, or there's a possibility SAP will release that in a future upgrade. Not right now, but maybe you can open an incident. They have this contest that you can create your incident. So maybe they will allow that in the future, but that's something we should consider. But from the other side, if you look at the extensibility, SAP in the cloud version allows us to create our own queries. It's more now user-friendly. We don't look at the tables and that. We now look at the data sources. We just read the name of a field, and then we create our own reports. It reminds me of, I don't know, Felipe, if you remember, the report painter. It's like the old report painter that
I think
SAP gives you the structure, you just put the code, really similar like that. Yeah.
I think I lost you for 10 seconds, Gabriel. I'm sorry for that.
Oh, no, don't worry. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, now I can hear you properly.
Sorry about that. It's that I was mentioning about this extensibility that it reminds me in the cloud version, like the report painter, because you have like the hierarchies, you have the structure, and then you just put the column. So SAP tried to do that really user friendly. But
Okay.
then from the other side, if you come from ECC, you're going to see that you have everything available for you, right? You can customize, you can put a development, you can do anything on private and the on-premise one because it will remain the same. SAP does not recommend, but it's allowed. So don't try to change the standard code, please. Just just leave it like this, and and create a C program if needed. Don't change the standard code. Something we should consider also is on the on-premise version, if I'm not mistaken, Felipe, you can help me here. We have only like a yearly upgrade, correct? So it's only going to happen once. But my recommendation here, guys, is even though SAP tells you only once, always try to keep up to date because there are some times that in the version you're not going to have all the functionalities. So it's always good to keep up to date so you don't have any issues. Maybe you need to connect to, I don't know, to like a satellite system, something like that, and it's going to come in the next version. Okay, and then something like all the 3 versions have, and it's really good, and we have also seen that based on experience, is that you can connect SAP to almost anything, right? I'm just going to mention some, but we have experience with SAP Concur. We have seen that many times. We have seen with on-premise, with private, with public, and the way you connect is just like connecting the dots, and that's it. You don't have to sweat anything. Like I remember in the past, it's just, I want SAP Concur, and that's it. Well, I know Concur is now part of SAP, but it's really easy now. And also, for example, SAP Real Spend. So anything you want to connect or any third party, SAP gives you the tools so you can connect. We have the tools, we can connect. There's always like a way to connect. I have not seen yet, I don't know about you, Felipe, like a system we cannot connect with SAP so far. Maybe in the future, but not today. But not today.
One of the good examples I want to give you here, taking advantage of your comment, is the one we recently worked for, that multi-bank project, right, where we connect SAP with US banks, right? So that's a nice feature. It's an easy project in terms of management, configuration, etc. Of course, we have some interactions with the bank. We are leading with financial information. But then it is very interesting how fast and how easy we can connect SAP with the banks, automatizing some of your finance processes, right? So it's very interesting. This is one of the good examples that based on what Gabriel said in terms of connections.
And that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Not only like Felipe mentioned that it's easy to connect, but remember, guys, that the connection is always 2 ways. 1 way outgoing and 1 way incoming. And this connection with the banks, it's actually giving us like in real time the information they need. Like they don't need to go to the bank anymore and review. No, everything is in SAP real time. And if you try to match that with the bank's portal, it's the same information. They are talking like real time.
Yeah, think about how much savings you can bring to your company with this type of communication, right? So that's the important thing.
And also security-wise, you know, like I know payments is really critical. Yeah, like security-wise, everything is now in one system in SAP. So you don't have to go to the bank. You don't have to ask like the bank about this. No, everything is in SAP. So you keep track of everything in SAP.
Correct. Yeah, so I want to bring your attention, guys, that I think the main message here is really in terms of upgrades. And why am I telling you this? Because this is also one of the biggest questions we get during our conversation. So what do I need to be worried in terms of upgrades? When should I do that? So I think that's the main message here. Public cloud, think about each quarter, you have a required upgrade by SAP. This is all done by SAP, but think about mobilizing your team internally to take care of some of these tests before moving to production. Private cloud on-premise, yearly upgrades. But what are the differences? For the private cloud, you are required to upgrade your system each 5 years. Although they provide one yearly update, each 5 years, you are required to go to the next version. Yeah. In terms of on-premise, although it's not recommended, you don't have this requirement. You can keep your version the way it is without any upgrades. SAP will not force you for anything. So these are the differences in terms of upgrades and frequency of upgrade you are required to attend. I want just to stop for 5 seconds now to see if we have any questions right now. Or maybe we can answer in the end, right, Gabriel? It's better, right? We can take all the questions at the end. That'll be more flexible here.
Maybe we're going to answer the question while we explain this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. The next slide, guys, is something, in my opinion, very interesting because that gives you the visibility on which type of deployment you need to choose, right? As you can see, we have 4 options: system conversion, system copy, and new implementation, and something which is brand new, in my opinion, selected data transition. What are the main differences here? So this is what SAP tells you in terms of what is the best option for you if you want to migrate from one system to another, or if you want to go from scratch to SAP. So the first one, called system conversion, it's mainly used for the ones who are using, for example, ECC, right? So you have ECC, you need to follow a couple of steps, then you are going to use this option to move to S/4HANA. System conversion. Current version, S/4HANA. System copy. This is a good example of companies who started working with SAP in the beginning. Remember my slide, 2015, 2016. So they have an old version and they want to upgrade for a newer version. That's system copy, right? So, and this between system conversion and system copy, we can call this as a technical project, right? It's more a technical migration in case you don't want to touch your business processes. If you want to touch your business processes, you need to think about the other 2 options. And what do I mean by touching the business processes? You know, I work with ECC, for example, or I work with S/4HANA. I know about my processes. I know where my apps are. So I don't want to change anything in terms of processes. That's a technical migration. I just bring my technical team, I upgrade my version, and then there are no changes in terms of process. That's a technical migration. Well, the third option is a new implementation, right? Also known as Greenfield. So here you can consider something coming from your legacy, something also coming from your ERP. So you can also choose the option of avoiding migrating data, but starting from scratch, choosing really a Greenfield implementation. And this is what we, or a mix, right? A mix of legacy and SAP ERP. You need to go with a new implementation. So SAP will provide us an instance from the scratch, zero, clean, and then we do all the configuration and bring your data after the scenes. And the final one, which I mentioned, which is the brand new one, we call as selective data transition. A good explanation here is very similar with the new implementation, but with the difference that you can work in pieces, right? So you can start bringing a piece of your legacy to your S/4HANA, then you bring a piece of your ERP. So you can cut the pizza slices and bring it to your system and eat them in the future, right? So that's kind of the idea. So when you have big companies that you need to be careful about your data, or you need some more time, so you can follow some methodology that can bring this data periodically, right? So that's what we call selective data transition.
It's like an implementation by phases, right? You decide what you want. Because remember, guys, let's put the example. You have finance, and then you have all these sub-modules, right? General ledger, accounts payable, and that. So you can decide what you're going to move and when you're going to move, because you need to move, you need to test, and then you need to approve, right? So you can go live with that piece. But then you need to continue with everything, all the processes you have, and then start moving them one by one. So you have everything in place.
That's exactly it. Thank you, Gabriel. All right, and then we come to the last question, right, which is when. And I have 2 more slides to present you, and in my opinion, these are the most interesting ones. I want to give you some information, and then Gabriel, I want to bring a question to you. I want your answer your honest answer, right? And based on your answer, I will add some comments from my side to see if we are on the same page. Well, I want to give you some visibility in terms of what are the next steps in terms of SAP S/4HANA. So, and here, guys, my focus is more really on customers who works with ECC, right? I'm not talking about, legacy systems, but it's really ECC customers. But for the ones who are familiar with SAP and reading the news, sometime in the past, we got some news from SAP saying, hey guys, you work with SAP ECC, you need to go to S/4HANA, otherwise you're gonna lose your support, right? So the first news said that this year would be 2025. So at that time, customers were running because 2025 was the final year, so they can migrate to S/4HANA. But then suddenly, a couple of years ago, in my personal opinion, it is due some market pressure, right? Some customers pressure. SAP decided to extend this support until 2027, where we are right now, and I'm talking about ERP, CRM, all the core applications, right? This is the best way to call it, core applications. SRM, the suite. Yeah. That's correct. Yeah. And more recently, there is something else new. So SAP announced that you can move until 2027, but now you have one other option. So if you want to postpone your project to 2030, you can, but you need to pay 2% more in terms of maintenance basis to SAP. So it's your decision. You can migrate until 2027 without any additional fees, or you can keep your version, keep your maintenance contract until 2030. So with that said, I want to move to the last slide to bring you some good information, and then I come with the question, Gabriel. I just want to see your answer. So I have here some numbers, guys. I have here some numbers to call your attention. So the first number is, this is something we got from a benchmark, some numbers from the market, and please understand this as an average. These numbers can go a bit up, a bit down, but these are real numbers. Right now, we have 40,000 SAP ECC customers worldwide, right? So SAP has contract with these 40,000 ECC customers. So remember my last slide. If all these customers need to move to SAP S/4HANA, otherwise they lose their contract, their support contract, and this is mathematics, right? If we do some calculation here, to attend these 40,000 customers moving to S/4HANA, we would need to go live every day with 12 customers, every day. 12 times, yeah. You can calculate, just calculate the remaining days we have until, and I'm being fair here, I'm just putting 2030. We need to go live with 12 customers per day. And here I'm considering the remaining 8 years we have from 2022, where we are, until 2030. So if we consider, Gabriel, all these numbers, here's the question I have to you. Do we have available S/4HANA consultants worldwide to take care of these implementations? Be honest.
No, I mean, like the short answer is no, right? We don't have people to go 12 times per day live. I have never seen that before. But something I will really like to comment, Felipe, and it was a really good point on the previous slide, is that SAP is giving you time, right? So plan ahead. I mean, if you want to save cost, plan ahead. So that's the advice we always give our customers. If you want something cheap, plan ahead. Just like when you want to travel, right, for vacations. If you want to travel next month, it's going to be more expensive. Mm-hmm. But if you want to travel for next year, it's going to be cheaper. Flights, hotel, accommodations, car, everything is going to be cheaper. So SAP, guys, is giving you the opportunity to actually lower your cost, do like an assessment in your company, and then you can take an educated answer. You know, based on the information you have, you can take the best decision. Either version you choose is going to be the best for you. Don't think it's going to be bad. It's going to be the best because you took that decision. But to your question, Felipe, no, man. Imagine how expensive it's going to be to to get all those consultants going live and that. No, I don't see this happening. At least not with these numbers.
I'm happy that we are on the same page, and it's not that we can. Sometimes we can disagree. That's not a problem. But now we agree totally. I want to add some points against your comments. So if we think about all the legal requirements we have per country, so think about the multinationals, right? Running in 5, 10, 20 countries, and you have all the legal aspects, all the legal reports, tax calculation, right? I can also add something here. Resources, consultants, availability. So we have availability for all these customers. Something else, if we consider one unique project, it's not one unique consultant, right? You have generally more than one per module, the project manager, etc. And then something very important. It's a team. It's a team. And then something very important. You said that as much as you wait to reach that 2027, 2030 date, less consultants you have, highest rates you will pay, right?
Yeah.
So my last point here is, like you said, Gabriel, plan ahead. Think about on when do you expect to start your journey to S/4HANA, and that's it. That's it. I think that answers our final question. Yeah. I would like to see if we have any questions in the chat. Let me see, how do I see that?
Yes, we do have one question from Sarah in the chat.
Okay.
If other people have questions, please use the Q&A while we are answering this one. Don't hesitate, we have plenty of time. Sarah is asking, in your experience, is the trend of using hosted and SAS offering for S/4HANA growing fast, or is it still a large proportion of customers still using in-house hosting and deployments?
Well, I can answer this one, and this is my personal opinion. Definitely, it's a big trend, move to the cloud. I don't see different than that. I want to answer this simply, but that's the way I see. I try to mention we have this on-premise option where you can host your infrastructure. You can have the option also to host in the cloud, but it's a trend, right? Cloud is something hot for everybody, all the companies, and most of the customers, I'm sure they'll go in this direction.
And not only that, I mean, like, cloud is giving you flexibility, right? You can be anywhere, and then you can just continue like approving, posting, anything. So I have seen that too, as a personal comment too. Like, most of our customers, they want to move to the cloud. They are seeing that as the option now, and they're trying to move from the, let's say, ECC to the cloud version.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. We have 2 extra questions, and keep them going. We have Gunjan that is asking, what will be the vanilla implementation time for an S4 project, and how big a team is needed for this said implementation if the client is implementing all the modules?
Oh, this is a tricky question.
Yeah, tough question, because it depends on a lot of things, right? I can give you some examples, and I'm going really vanilla, okay, Gunjan, really vanilla. I would say a fair project, depending on the number of modules, for a vanilla project, it's something between 3 to 4 months. Depending on the number of entities, it can even go to 2.5, 3. But again, we need to understand the number of countries and entities, right? The number of modules, number of users, number of data. So these are some of the main points that we generally take into consideration when we estimate an S/4HANA project, right? So being very straight to the point, vanilla project, 2.5, 3, 4 months, not more than this.
Yeah, I think that's a fair time. And also, please consider that even if it's vanilla, you have legal requirements. So not all countries have the same legal requirements. So we have faced right now because we have customers with 8-9 countries across the world, and they have different requirements everywhere. Even like for some countries in Europe, they have different legal requirements. Also in US, South America, Asia. So also think about the legal requirements of your company and how you want to handle that in SAP.
So I guess that for more information, Gunshan, you will need to take contact with Felipe and Gabriel and maybe jump on a call so they can evaluate properly your projects and give you a more detailed approximation, I would say.
Correct. Yeah. And we will be more than happy to receive your call for any clarification.
Great. Then we have someone asking for Gabriel. You mentioned Fiori a few times. Could you please explain what it represents?
Oh yeah, Fiori is the, I'll try to use 2 examples. So if you come from ECC, you have seen GUI, right? GUI is this, what I used to call the blue screen of SAP. That's the user interface, what we have seen in the past, and I have seen so many years now. So when SAP moved to the cloud and these new versions, they, let's say, release a new type of user interface that's called Fiori. So a little bit of history, if I'm not mistaken, Fiori, it's the Italian for flower, if I'm not mistaken. I read that sometimes in the past. So, but now the Fiori is the user interface. So it's how you're going to see now SAP. In the past, in SAP, you saw a lot of fields, you have to fill all the fields. But with Fiori, they try to use that, do that user friendly. So you have this screen now, and then you have to put the data. So it's more like what the user will see as SAP. That's Fiori now. The user interface, the user will see. How will interact with SAP.
I can add you more. So when you look to the Fiori screen, we have a couple of tiles, right? Squares. And this is what we call apps or tiles. And behind the scenes, what Fiori brings in terms of advantages comparing with old GUI is the fact that we have all the artificial intelligence involved in some of the apps. You have robotics, IoT. So some of these, let me call like IT nice things that we talk in the market. So Fiori brings these functionalities to us.
Great. I'm sure that gives a lot of light on this question and on this whole topic.
Nice.
We have one last question, apparently from Mary, which based on your presentation is asking, what does flexibility represent, for example, for manufacturing company, and what are SAP's best practices?
Okay,
that's maybe a tricky one.
Yeah, but I can give you some good examples here. So flexibility, Mary, represents for me how much you can do in the system, right? So I used to say to my customers, to my users, mainly when I worked as a consultant, that with IT you can do everything you want. You just need to know the logic and the rule, and then implement in the system. When I say that I have more flexibility, it means I have more options, more doors where I can develop my functionalities in the system. So I can give you one example. If you go to the public cloud, you have one standard report where it brings like the cash management, the cash flow, right? So you have the accounts, you have the numbers, you have the signs. But then if you want to change some slight thing like a sign, it's not possible because it's all managed by SAP, unless we have a group of companies requesting this to SAP, and then they can think about and change this for a next release based on some pressure from the customers. Then if we go to the private or the on-premise, This is very easy. I bring my developer, I change the sign according to the user request. So this is just a simple example that translates what I'm talking about, what is flexibility. I have more flexibility in the private and on-premise than on public.
Yeah, so something I want to add, Felipe, sorry about that. Something I want to add also about these best practices and manufacturing is that, Mary, you need to understand like the end-to-end of your manufacturing process, just using that example, because we need to understand, based on these 3 versions we have, what type of manufacturing you're doing, because we have, for example, mining, we have construction, we have automobile. So we have different type of manufacturing. So we need to understand how that's going to reflect in SAP. You know, how you're going to translate that in these new versions of SAP. So the best practice itself is like you are collecting all the processes of these companies and you're trying to optimize this process in a unique line. So you don't do this way, you do this way. No, everyone should follow this way because this is what we have seen is the best way you can achieve the results in less time and without using too much money. You know, so this is like best practices, like really high level is just that, like a collection of processes, streamlined, optimized. So you just go to SAP and follow that process.
Yeah, and SAP knows that at least if most of the companies follow these best practices, so step A plus B plus C is equal to D, that specific process will work. So that's why they call best practice.
Yeah.
Most of the companies knows that A plus B plus C it's equal to D, right? But then I'm coming back to my flexibility. Then there is a specific company that has a huge manufacturing process, but A plus B plus C, it's not equal to D, it's equal to E. And then this is where we come with flexibility. We need some flexibility to break this best practice.
Yes, exactly.
I hope I answered your question.
I'm not creating more questions.
Any more questions, Lucille?
On my end, I don't see any others. Let's give a minute to people.
All right.
Mary says, yes, you answer a question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
So I guess if there aren't any other questions, we can close off this session and thank everyone for joining us and you both for participating and sharing all this knowledge with us.
My
thank you for your opportunity.
Lucille. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very happy to. I hope you guys leave this session with better visibility about these SAP S/4HANA versions, how you can implement, when you can implement, and never forget about these 3 questions. Gabriel, it was a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And for our audience, you can count on us whenever you need. We are here for us. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.